Hey there, welcome. Thanks for joining me for this little free training in Iridology. I would really appreciate it if you would do me a couple of little favors. They'll take just a few seconds, I promise. Number one, hit the subscribe button, subscribe to this channel. Number two, like this video. And number three, leave a comment. Doing all of those things helps to boost the profile and the visibility of my channel and encourages me to keep producing these videos for you. Enjoy the video. Welcome. I'm so glad you are with me today. Just as we're getting ready to get into the meat of this, I would love to know what your background is. I'd love to know what your background is in health and your background in iridology. Again, that's the kind of information that helps me to be able to tweak this on the fly and to make sure that it's coming closer to meeting your needs and your expectations. So drop those comments in the chat box, in the comments box. If you're with me on Instagram, put them in the thread, and I will do my best to make sure that I answer your concerns. All right, so there are a lot of misconceptions about iridology that are being perpetrated by people who have been trained in archaic and disproven methods. That may sound like a harsh judgment. I want you to remember that I've been doing this for over 4 decades. I've seen a lot of the development of iridology because of modern technology. There's a lot of information out there that has been disproved, and it was the information I learned 4 decades ago, right? And it's time for us to kind of get up to speed and to drop things that have been proven to be incorrect and to adapt and adopt the new information. When we have iridologists who are using that outdated information, it actually gives all of us a bad name. Do you agree with me that that could be possible depending on what your trainings are? Iridologists who are up to date practice constitutional iridology. This is the iridology that has the most research behind it, that is continuing to develop as all good sciences do. And again, there is ongoing research going on. So again, let's have a conversation today. Drop comments in the chat box, drop questions in the chat box. I'll weave them into our conversation, and we will get in there and do some basic iridology learning today. Now, many of you have possibly heard the story about the owl. Now, this is a story that I'm going to blow out of the water, just forewarning you, because this is what people are basing their information on when they say that eyes change. All right, so the story goes like this. Back in the 1800s, there was a young boy named Ignaz von Petschle, and he was 10 or 11 years old. The story has so many variations beyond that we're not even sure which thread is correct. It goes that he caught or trapped or found an owl or a hawk or some other kind of bird of prey that had a broken leg or a wing. And what he reported that he saw was that somewhere in the bird's eye, he saw a black line through the iris. He took the bird home and nursed it back to health. And as he nursed it back to health, he noticed that that line disappeared. Now, here's the gripe I have with that story. How many veterinarians are there? How many wild bird sanctuaries are there where fish and game and wildlife people and hunters and hikers, when they find an injured bird, they take it to the sanctuary to be nursed back to health? There's lots of those around the world, right? Why has no one else ever seen or recorded that kind of an event happening, a black line in a bird's eye that healed as the bird's injuries were healed? Okay, so that's our first concern here, is that it's never been reproduced. Good science reproduces results. Do you agree with me on that? If you do, give me a yes. Good science runs studies where results can be reproduced. Yeah, thank you so much for that, Monique, that you agree that good science produces studies where results can be reproduced, and Tasha agrees, but this has never been reproduced anywhere. Another concern here is that the structure of an animal iris is different from a human iris. Most animal irises, and especially birds, do not have the same surface structure that a human iris does. And so we cannot extrapolate necessarily from a bird to a human because there is a variable that is distinct to the species. Okay, so we've got some concerns here. We also know he was an 11-year-old boy. And so there's some discrepancies there. What we know and love about Ignaz von Petschle is that as he grew up, as he matured, became an adult, he became a medical doctor, and he started studying eyes, drawing them out by hand, correlating stories to what he saw in the eyes. So this person has stomach problems. All these 100 people have stomach problems, and look, they have this similar kind of thing in their eye. So he started it. For that, we are grateful. And he did a great job of laying a foundation, but we have to throw this owl story out. We simply have to. It's just not a valid story. I want to share with you a very personal case history. This is my eye, picture taken 17th of March, 2017, and I've recorded shutter speed and things like that. Now, you're going to notice as we go through that there's going to be some difference in the technology, and of course, that changes certain aspects of the validity here. And we're going to admit that up front. Mostly what your tech will change, it's the same camera in this case, it's a different lighting system that I moved to later on. And the lighting color will change the image color. The lighting brightness may change the pupil size. So we know there are variables there. But what we are really looking at today isn't the color, it's the fiber structure. And it's this fiber that we're looking at here that a bird does not have. All right, so this is what my left iris looks like in 2017. And this is a really important thing to note. I want you to look at what you see in the fiber structure right here. So at about 20 minutes, if we're using the minutes on a clock, at about 20 minutes, I want you to notice what we've got here. There's no significant shading between these fibers. We've got some fibers that are a little bit stronger looking, a little bit more bold and more white-ish. And I use that white-ish because color is going to be varied a little bit by our lighting here. All right, so notice this, March 17th, 2017. This is, if you look on, say, the Ellen Tart-Jensen Iridology map, this is the arm reflex area, or the arm reaction field, specifically for the left arm. Okay, I want you to hold this image in your mind's eye. This is me, the 13th of March, 2019, at the hospital, waiting for x-rays. I had slipped on the ice. It was a dark morning. I was rushing out to catch transit to get downtown, slipped on ice, landed hard, knew instantly something was wrong as I laid on the ice, just about ready to vomit. Feeling disoriented, lightheaded, I knew instantly I was shocky and that I had to somehow get back home that 2 blocks and had to call my husband and my daughter, who had already left for the day, to come home and help me. Okay. Now, my arm doesn't normally have a huge bump in it like that. I mean, you can see, I can take off this big, ugly watch, and you can see, this is my left arm. It does not have a great big lump on it. Okay. And so this is what the x-rays looks like. There were 2 breaks. That's a very significant break. They tried to do an external reduction and it did not work. So thank goodness for drugs. I'm a very holistic person, but I'm grateful for drugs at the appropriate time. They totally knocked me out. My husband said they massaged, they pulled, they pushed. They had people holding my shoulders down while someone pulled on my arm. He said it was quite a procedure. Then they re-x-rayed it and they were not able to get it. Actually, this is taken through a cast. They were not able to get it to line up properly. So I ended up in surgery. All right. This is that one break, but there's another break in here somewhere. I think it's up in here. I could be wrong because I don't know how to read x-rays. This is what my arm looks like in the surgical slab cast. Of course, they had to cast it still, so it's a half cast wrapped in gauze and things. My fingers are swollen like sausages. I could barely move them. They were so swollen. But I had the presence of mind just a couple of days later to take eye photos again. Now notice my f-stop was a bit different. My shutter speed was, how does that compare? Let's come back here. Shutter speed was the same, but f-stop was different. So that's going to make this a little bit brighter. All right. Now you got to give me credit. I still had the drugs in my system. I was still feeling pukey and disgusting and awful, but I thought I need to get pictures of my eyes. Okay, get a life, right? And so let's look at that area of the eye again, that arm reaction field. The fibers, there's no black line formed in there. You would think that after having a double incision surgery and having 2 plates and 12 screws inserted into my arm, that if there was going to be some indication in my eye that there was a broken something that had just happened, that it would have showed up, right? But it didn't. There was nothing in my eye. There's the side view again. 2 weeks post-surgery on cast change day, doctors saying looks great, looks absolutely fabulous. This is what my arm looks like. There's a very fine scar between the tendons on the palm side of my arm, another scar down the side. And when you look at it carefully, you can actually see the metal plate that's embedded in my, or that's in my arm right here. The other one is under the tendon, so you can't see it, which is good because I think they're gross. All right. So April 3rd, again, thought I would just keep taking pictures. This is on the same settings as the previous one, but again, I'm taking these photos on my own. Camera's on a tripod, so they're not going to be absolutely precisely the same angle, which is why this is a little bit more shaded here, just off to the side a bit. But look at the fiber structure again. We don't have a black line that's disappearing. A black line did not register. Did not register. Now, why? Why did the eye not indicate this trauma? Why did the iris not show there had been a significant trauma? It didn't show it because breaking my arm did not change my genetic structure. The iris reflects about 95% validity. The genetic structure, there's 5% variable for things that might be influential, but most of it is genetic. And breaking my arm didn't change my genetic structure. Had I conceived a child while my arm was broken, I would not have delivered a baby with a broken arm, right? This didn't change my genes. So let's look at these images all side by side. 17th of March. We go to, so 2017, we go to 19th of March, 2019, just a few days after the double break and the double surgery. And we look at it again in April 2019. Now you'll notice that these lines look like they're a little lower on the photo. That is simply because angle of camera was not totally level to the horizon, if you get my drift. When I'm doing things manually, there's always going to be that leeway, but we know it's the same eye. We know it's just the camera position has shifted slightly. And we see no difference in the shading or those fiber structures. Okay, so there we have it to April 9th. Now, 2019 was not a good year. On Mother's Day 2019, so in May, I was visiting my son and I fell down, I tripped on the stairs in his house and I landed hard on a ceramic tile floor on my elbow and did this. So yes, 10 weeks after double breaking my wrist, I now have snapped the olecranon right off. Of course, you can't do an external reduction on this, right? This has to have surgery because you've got to have a way to hold this broken piece right up against this other piece if we are to actually get it to fix. So this is me sitting in the emergency room again, waiting for surgery. This is me post-surgery, doing my best to, keep a stiff upper lip and just smile through. One thing I did learn, this has nothing to do with iridology, is surgical scrubs are the best clothes when you've got an arm cast, because they've got wide sleeves and a wide neck and lots of pockets for carrying things. Because if you've only got one good hand, right, you need help carrying stuff. So there you go. There's my hot tip for the day if you happen to break your arm. So that was, I believe, on May 12th was when I broke the arm. Wasn't quite as on the ball to get pictures, but look, that arm area, because it's the same arm, right? Same arm, and there's a nice scar wrapping around my elbow now. No change in this arm reflex area, not even a hint. And so, going back for cast change on the elbow, there's the wrist healing nicely. Here's the elbow with all the pins and wires. I actually have flown since then. Like right after that, I had to be in Ontario for something and had to fly out for it. So this was back in 2019. I did not set off metal detectors. I was very pleased with myself for not doing that. All right, so in September 2019, again, still no change. The fiber structure here is still the same. Hasn't gone up, hasn't gone down. It has stayed the same. So it's a study of one person, and I know that doesn't necessarily guarantee anything, but we're going to look at some other cases of surgeries in just a moment, and we're going to see that eyes don't change because of broken bones and surgeries. They just don't. So, my arm is totally healed now. My physiotherapist said I would be lucky to get 70% of the use back, but he was so good at what he did that I now have probably 97% of the use back. So this is brilliant. So my other free advice for today is if you ever break a limb and go for physio, do everything they tell you to do, no matter how much it hurts. And let them inflict whatever pain they need to, because it's going to help you in the long run. All right, so now that you've actually met my arm, let me introduce myself. And please, as you have questions as we go along, throw those questions in. All righty. My name is Judith Cobb. I'm a master herbalist, natural nutrition clinical practitioner, and a certified iridologist. I got into holistic healing over 4 decades ago because I had health problems. I am also a level 3 certified iridology instructor through IPA. Level 3 is the highest level of certification they offer for an iridologist or for an instructor. And last time I checked, which was just a few weeks ago, there are only 5 level 3 instructors in the world to date. In my 4 decades in the industry, I've written and self-published and self-distributed several books: Pregnancy Naturally, The Herbal Birth Kit Handbook, Healthy Kids Naturally, The Essential Guide to Nature Sunshine Products, Biokinesiology and Color Therapy, Level 1 and 2, and The Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology Textbook. I've also designed and taught many courses on herbology, biokinesiology. I was a certified prenatal educator for a few years, and so I designed and taught prenatal classes. And I do teach iridology now, affiliated with the International Iridology Practitioners Association. Stay with me till the end of our time today, because I would like to invite you to learn more about the iridology program I teach. I'm a professional member of the Canadian Association of Holistic the Canadian Association of Holistic Nutrition Professionals and the Canadian Association of Natural Nutritional Professionals. These are both professional organizations that require a certain level of training before you can apply for membership with them. As is the Alberta Herbalist Association, I'm a professional member there, and again had to prove a certain level of training in order to be a professional member. We know that irides don't change because of trauma. And we need to ask the question then, if we can't see where damage has happened previously, why would a health professional like you want to learn iridology? Good question. My answer for you is this: because understanding the eyes teaches us about where a person's inherent weaknesses and strengths are. That helps us to know them on a deeper level so that when our client brings in a list of things they would like help with, and maybe they're bringing in lab tests if you've got the training to understand lab tests. When you add to that iridology, you begin to understand why your client has those symptoms, why their lab tests came back the way they did. And that will give you the information you need to create very succinct and very manageable programs for your clients. We often, when we're doing iridology, we actually do sclerology with it. So where the iris is genetic and dynamic, the sclera is, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Where the iris is genetic and does not change quickly or in response to things that we're doing nutritionally. It doesn't show us where the current problems are. It shows us where the potential issues are. The sclera tells us what is dynamic. The sclera shows us where the current hotspots are. And that's really important. It doesn't give us a disease name, but as we see that there's a hotspot in the sclera, and we combine that with the genetic potential of the iris, and we layer that on top of what our clients' health concerns are and possibly their lab tests, it gives us that really deep understanding of what we should be doing. We often see hotspots in the sclera if we're looking at the sclera every 6 months to every year, like every 6 to 12 months, we can see hotspots before they become clinical symptoms. And that allows us then to begin to work preventively. All right, so should we look at some more cases? If you would like to look at some more cases of surgeries and traumas, give me cases in the comments box. Give me the word cases in the comments box. Yeah. Oh, Megan, you're fast on the draw. Teresa, so are you. Thank you for that. Yeah, Jason, fantastic. Let's start with looking a bit at the sclera. This is the eye of a client. She was 17 when I took this photo, but I took care of her mom before they got pregnant with this girl. So I've known this family for, well, now I've known them for about 30 years. And the parents have been clients of mine for that long. This daughter, of course, was my client from before she was conceived. And so at about the age of 17, she came in to see me. Her mom brought her in because she had had a significant head trauma. A young man in her school thought it would be really funny to whack her in the head with a very thick book, and it caused a very significant concussion. I don't have her images from before the concussion because we had never done them with her. I don't know why, but we never had. This is what we call a trauma fork or a concussion mark. When it's in the head region, it's a concussion mark. So when we see this very straight blood vessel coming down and branching off like this, that is a trauma fork. So this was taken a couple of months after the impact. She was in 12th grade at the time. She nearly lost that semester of school because she had to spend, back then they were saying the best therapy is dark room, lay still. Don't think they do that anymore. I think that's been updated in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years. But she had spent nearly a full month on her bed, flat on her back in a darkened room, right? And after that, she could read, but it didn't make sense to her. So she had to have someone read her all of her notes. When she did her exams that semester, she had to have a proctor who would read the exam questions for her and write down her answers because she still was having problems connecting things. She's totally recovered now. This is 5 years post-trauma. She's actually done a 2-year diploma at a design college, and so she's doing very well. But this is what we expect to see when someone has had a significant head trauma, and when it has not yet healed. It had not healed by the time I saw her here. And so we would anticipate, with the significance of the trauma that she had, that this may have faded, but it likely will not have disappeared. Because with that significant of a trauma, there is likely some residual brain damage that she has learned to work around quite well. All right. So Monique is saying, this is my son today. Wow, can't wait to look at his eyes. Fantastic. I'd love to chat with you about what you find in his eyes. Here is another trauma fork. Now, I don't have as strong of a case history on this person. This was a woman in her early 30s, and I don't have photos from beforehand because this was our very first meeting. And when I looked at this, I asked her, have you had a severe head impact, a whiplash with your head banged to the steering wheel or the car window, or a skiing accident where you really, hit your head on the ground, a biking accident where you went over your handlebars and landed on your face or something like that. And she had. And again, it's still there. That injury was many, many years prior, and she had healed up from it. But this is saying there is still some deep residual damage. This is actually one of my adult sons. It would be about 3 years ago, just before COVID. He had a hernia, an abdominal hernia. And with that hernia, I mean, it was really bad. He worked at Lowe's, and of course doing a lot of heavy lifting. So they put him on modified activities. But here in Calgary, there is such a wait list for surgeries. Even back then, it was going to be 9 months till he could see a surgeon, then probably another 9 months to a year till he could have the surgery. I found a surgeon in a small town about 2 hours away who had no wait list. So he was able to get his first appointment with her within 3 weeks and the surgery 2 weeks later, just because he was willing to leave town. When we look at his right iris and we look at the abdominal area, we're looking at this area right over here. Okay, now I want you to notice these photos are a few years old. This is a different camera, different lighting. That's going to change somewhat what we see. One of the things is this lighting was much dimmer. And so much brighter. So his pupil was smaller. So the fibers appear straighter. This light is much brighter. And this was just a few days after surgery. So both of those things will make the pupils much larger, which will make the fiber structure look wavier. When we look at that abdominal area, which is right over here, and we compare it to here, there's no black line. Right? There was no black line a couple of years before the surgery. There's no black line a couple of days after the surgery. There's nothing here that says he had surgery or that he had tissue damage that was repairing. I mean, we all know that when you've had a hernia repair, it's 6 weeks till you can lift anything heavier than a wet dish rag, right? I think they say 1 kilogram now, so 2 pounds. But the tissue was clearly at this stage, because this was just a few days after surgery, his abdominal wall had not yet healed, right? So why is there not a black line here, right? This is another young man, 40-year-old young man in 2017. And what we're looking at down here is he had bowel cancer, he had colorectal cancer. And so in 2017, he had not yet been diagnosed. This is 3 years prior to his diagnosis. In 2018, we're still not seeing anything here that would suggest cancer. We've got a tiny bit of very, very dark, what I call splatter pigment. That's not a technical term. And that suggests the liver is struggling in some way, and it's sitting in that lower rectum area. And the cancer was just beyond the rectum, just slightly up into that descending bowel. And then we have 6 weeks post-surgery. So I redid his eyes with both cameras so we could see the difference. So again, when we come into here, let me back up. You'll notice the light type here. This was the old camera because I only had the old camera then. And then here, or the old light, this is the old light again. Again, looking in that area, it's all the same. It's all the same. Down to that little bit of shading that's sitting in here. And that little tiny separation that's in here, it is all the same. Again, lighting is slightly different, which is why this eye appears brighter. Here again, we've got all the same shading, all the same splatter pigment. This is 6 weeks post-surgery. Not a change. Not a change. So we cannot use the eyes to show us changes that are not genetic. We do know that we can see changes in the eyes slowly and over time, but only when those changes are based on genetic cues, right? We know that genes turn on and off, right? That's epigenetics, right? So if a gene has been activated, we may see a change in the iris, but it won't be in the fiber structure. It would be in the pigment. It would be with a pigment deposit showing up in the eye. So if this has given you some insight to the fact that before and after pictures that say, oh, look at the massive healing, are not accurate, and that we cannot see tissue healing in the eyes, then I would like to invite you to learn more about the dynamic iridology assessment system. This is a course that I've designed that meets all of the IPA, that's the International Iridology Practitioner requirements, to prepare you to sit for the certification process. It is the only live, online, fully mentored course for nutritionists, herbalists, naturopaths who want to streamline their clinical work without sacrificing client care. I find that far too many holistic practitioners see the client, gather information, then go off and donate 2 or 3 or 4 hours of their own time to create a program for their client. And often that program gets emailed to the client, and those are hours the practitioner didn't get paid for, right? And it's sad that practitioners are expected to work for free creating programs, and you don't have to. When you know how to use iridology well, you can create what I call next step programs in your client sessions. You can get your clients' health moving step by step in steps they can actually do and be successful with, get them seeing results, get them feeling the benefits, and get that program created right in your session. And because it's just a little bit of information, they come back next month. What is the next step? I'm getting these results. What is the next step? Then they come back the next month. I'm getting these results. What is the next step? And we keep building their program incrementally in steps they can very easily achieve and see results from. What does that do? It means that your clients can stick with the programs that you've given. It means they don't have frustration. And it means they want to keep coming back. And they'll come back for 4 or 5 appointments. You'll get them to that place where they're feeling really good. Then they'll disappear for a few years. They really don't need you right now. But because of how you held their hand and walked them through the steps, when they start to need you again in a few years, they're going to think of you and come back. I have many clients who've been with me now for anywhere from 25 to 40 years. And they come back typically on 4 to 5 year intervals for a series of appointments. We'll get them back on track, and then they'll go away for a few years, right? And I love doing that. It's great to know that I've taught them the fundamentals, what they need to know to move forward and to manage their own health. Then when they need me, they will come back. We never want to overwhelm our clients because it doesn't take them where they need to go, right? When they're overwhelmed, they don't do anything. Or they pick and choose what they want to do, and they usually pick and choose the things that aren't going to have the most impact. So if you want to learn more than just iris markers, if you actually want to learn how the markers work off each other, if you want to be mentored in learning how to create programs based on client cases and iridology, programs that your client can stick with, if you want to have long-term mentoring, not just for the duration of the course, but for years beyond, then we should have a chat, because our next course is starting on January 12th, and enrollment is open now. If you're a herbalist or a nutrition coach or a naturopath, and or if you're a health professional that has at least one college level anatomy and physiology course under your belt, and you want to learn iridology, we should chat. I only accept students who have proof of a college level anatomy and physiology course. I don't have time to teach the A&P in this course. And if you don't have A&P, I guarantee you will get lost by about the 5th lesson. If you have A&P, we can go so deep, have so much fun, and you can get so good at iridology because you'll understand how everything works together. The goal of this course is to teach you constitutional iridology and how to use it, not just what it is, but how to use it clinically. We practice clinical cases at the end of every lesson. We have about 45 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes, where we look at eyes outside of learn this marking, and we talk about what we're seeing and how it works and what it's doing. And we practice what questions do you need to ask your client when you see these things in conjunction with those symptoms. And then we practice what recommendations would you make. Depending on your background, that will determine the recommendations you make. If you're an aromatherapist, I expect to hear aromatherapy answers from you. If you're a nutritionist, I expect to hear nutrition answers. If you're a naturopath, I want to hear naturopathic answers. If you know vitamins and minerals, I want to hear vitamins and minerals, right? So we're helping you integrate what you already know with iridology while we're throwing in little bits of nutrition training and little bits of herbal training as well. So the next course start date is January 12th. And the class runs from 12 o'clock to 2:15. We meet once a week for 20 weeks. And we specifically do that because there is so much information. I want you to have time between classes to practice what you've learned, to review what we've studied in class, so that when you come to the next class, if you've got any questions, you know what they are because you've been working with this. And, well, I've got a question about this. We'll answer that in the very next class to make sure that you are rock solid and you know what you're doing. And so registration is open. I only accept registration when I've had a conversation with you. This course is not open to anyone. It's open to people that we specifically admit. So if you are interested in learning more about this course, please use this URL, tiny URL dynamic-iridology-insight. I'm going to pop that into the comments here for the webinar. There we go. And schedule a Zoom video call with me. Let's have a conversation about who you are, where you're at, why you want to learn iridology. Let's see if this course is a good fit for you. If it's a great fit, I will offer you the opportunity to enroll. If it's not a great fit, I will coach you as to what I think would be a better fit for you right now. Maybe this will be a better fit later on. Right? So important that this be a good fit. Nothing breaks my heart more than to have a student drop out. Right? It changes everything when a student drops out because I only accept 10 students per class. Right? So it's a small group, you get lots of individual attention. Here's what one of my grads said. This is Natalie from France. She's a naturopath in France. She completed her iridology certification technically in 2018, but she didn't feel that she had learned how to use it in a clinical setting. So she came and did dynamic iridology with me in 2021. And her first language is not English, it is French. She was taking English classes while she was learning iridology. Oh my goodness. Her class time was at 1 a.m. in France. She got up for class every week. She did not miss a class. So impressed. However, if she had to miss a class, not a big deal, because every class session is recorded and stored for my students to review. So your cohort's classes are all recorded and stored on your student site so you can go back and review them. Natalie said, I'm so happy, my first English certification. Thanks, it was so a pleasure to have you as a teacher. Thank you. It was so a pleasure to follow the program every week. You are a great teacher. Have a nice day, Judith. So sweet, so sweet. This is Joyce Lee, she's a clinical aromatherapist, a chartered herbalist, and a certified nutrition coach. This is what she said. I took an iridology course from another school a few years ago, but I was left feeling inadequately trained and with no confidence in the material or my abilities to perform accurate assessments. Upon completion of Judith's course, I feel very confident in my abilities and excited to offer iridology services to my clients. This course is an incredible value, highly recommended. So whether you've got iridology under your belt or not is irrelevant. If you do have iridology and you're finding you don't know how to use it, it's not working for you, then dynamic iridology is probably a good thing for you to consider taking. If you don't have iridology under your belt, you're starting from ground zero, don't worry, because this course starts at ground zero. We start at the very beginning with the history and eye anatomy, and we build each week concept by concept so that nobody gets left behind. Again, I invite you, if you are interested in learning more about the program, learning if it's a good fit for you, if you've got that anatomy and physiology course already under your belt, maybe you're a massage therapist and you had to do it there, maybe you had to do A&P as a part of your herb training or your nutrition training, that all counts. Book a call. Now, the other reason I'm really firm on you have to have the A&P is the International Iridology Practitioners Association requires that in order for you to be certified, you provide them a transcript of your coursework that shows anatomy and physiology as a separate course with a grade of 80% or better. So it's not just me saying you need A&P. It's IPA saying you need A&P. Right. And so you can say, well, I've read a textbook, that's not good enough. We need to see it on a transcript, right? We need to see that you've got it done, because if you don't have it, IPA won't let you sit for the certification exam. All righty. So again, I invite you, book a call, book a Zoom video call. Let's talk about the course if you've got A&P. And if you've got any questions about anything we talked about today, whether it's the eye slides we looked at, the breaks, the surgeries, the cancer things we looked at, or if it's about the course, feel free to drop those questions in the comments box. I'll hang around for a minute, or just feel free to book a call. If you've got the A&P and you're pretty sure you're interested in this, you want to know more, let's have a call. Let's talk about where we're at. Trina, good to see you. Haven't seen you in a bit. Good to see you. All righty. I'm not seeing any questions come in. Just know that you can reach out to me through the Facebook group. Reach out, book a call if you're ready to hop on board and learn more about the course. And let's get your questions answered and see if it's a good fit. Hey, thanks so much for watching. How was that? Did you learn something? I'd love it if you drop a comment below this to let me know what you learned. And if you would also subscribe to the channel and like this video. Thanks so much, and we'll see you again. Bye for now.